Welcome to episode number 191 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We're recording live on YouTube, January. How many months have I lost there? On June 15, 2017. Today's topics, we have a lot to go through. Among them, Trump's trolls, content analytics, Dylan speaks, political analytics, mental health bot, failing New York Times, updated Twitter DMs, pesky tweets, Bill Maher's apology, promoted PR problems, and a lot more. BL always is the honors to start it off with the best story of the week. And BL, what was that?
Well, I have to admit, I think the best story of the week was when Senator Chuck Schumer trolled Donald Trump because the king channeled North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and had his entire staff of puppets praise him in the press, to the press, excuse me. And he had them talk about how privileged they felt to be working for him and carrying out his programs. And within an hour, Senator Chuck Schumer and his senior staff rolled out a Trump parody that was hilarious. And he pinned the video to his Twitter feed. So I say, let's hear it for the senator from New York.
So lots of views on that video. One thing we don't get as podcasters, and we complain about this all the time, right, BL, is analytics on our podcasts.
Right.
So all we get really are download numbers or video views. There's not a lot to determine how much of a podcast people are listening to, who's listening to it, and all the stuff that we expect from web analytics. But there was a big announcement. Apple, this is according to a Digiday article by Max Willens, Apple is going to offer podcasters analytics. And Apple, here's some stats that Max Willens' article runs through that will give you an idea of just how important this announcement is. Nearly 80% of all podcast consumption happened on Apple devices in 2015. Apple remains a dominant hosting platform for podcasts, hosting about 70% of all available podcasts, according to Adopter Media.
Including ours.
By the end of the year, more than a third of all Americans will listen to podcasts on a monthly basis. That's up 20% from 20% in 2016. 90% of all podcast ads have a direct response component. Why? Because there's no other way to measure it, right? So that's why all those podcast ads are direct response ads. Apple has announced that they'll provide podcasters with the data about their audience's behavior starting with iOS 11. The changes in the Apple Podcast app will allow creators to track aggregated data about when users start, stop, and skip within an episode. We'll also be able to choose how listeners encounter our shows, like an episodic or serial seasons, a full trailer or bonus episodes. The data will be anonymized. Apple-hosted shows still won't be able to target people with the kind of audience data that you get from analytics of Facebook, Twitter, Google ads. So there's still that. It's very little, but it's more than we have now. So something is better than nothing. And we know next to nothing about you, our listeners. We'd like to know more. We'd like to know more, exactly. So email me at david@bsmediashow.com. Tell us who you are, what you do, why you listen, what do you love about the show, what do you hate about the show. Just let us know who you are, because we don't know, and we'd love to hear from you.
And what we'll do for you, if you do that, is we'll send you a copy of our ebook about the best apps that we covered in earlier in the show.
Right.
So don't hold your breath for those emails to start coming, though. That's a lot to ask. Anyway, the thing that happened this week that I found just fantastic, but then was pointed out by you, maybe wasn't as fantastic as it seemed, is Bob Dylan gave his acceptance speech for the Pulitzer Prize. Nobel Prize. And I just thought it was fantastic. But then I got the story from Bette Midler, from Rolling Stone, and then from Slate. So they were by Daniel Krebs and Andrea Pitzer and Bette Midler. And in a wonderful 30-minute speech. Dylan explains the relationship of his music to literature. And he submitted his speech before the 6-month deadline, so he'd be sure to get paid. And he recorded it June 4th in Los Angeles. And he discusses his musical influences like Lead Belly and Buddy Holly, along with literary works that informed his songwriting, like Moby Dick, All Quiet on the Western Front, the Bible, and Homer's The Odyssey. And he said, the themes from those books worked their ways into many of my songs, either knowingly or unintentionally. I wanted to write songs unlike anything anybody ever heard, and these themes were fundamental. Definitely he wrote songs unlike anything anyone had ever heard, and clearly these themes go throughout his various songs and albums. And he said, our songs are alive in the land of the living, and unlike literature, they're meant to be sung, not read. And he wondered, like, really what he was doing, being given a prize for literature. And you'll also find out when you listen why Starbucks coffee is called Starbucks. But the question is, did he crib it from SparkNotes? And Andrea Pitzer in Slate says, yeah, and she gives many examples of possible cribbing. But she also says perhaps the use of SparkNotes can be seen as a send-up of the prestige prize economy. Either way, through Dylan's Nobel lecture, SparkNotes material may well join Duchamp's urinal and Andy Warhol's fake Brillo and Brillo pad boxes as a functional commodity now made immortal. And she said she asked a bunch of academics what they thought, and the reviews were mixed, but one of them, Juan Martinez, a literature professor at Northwestern University, said, if Dylan was in my class and he submitted an essay with these plagiarized bits, I'd fail him. Well, I'd never fail him.
Well, I'd fail him for that. I wouldn't fail him for his lyrics.
No, well, but his lyrics might be cribbed from SparkNotes. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, it's fascinating. His lyrics certainly have biblical themes and everything, you can tell from that. But the most important thing is Bette Midler.
Yeah, Bette Midler posted
the singer.
Yeah. Oh, I follow Bette Midler. She's quite wonderful on Twitter.
Very interesting.
She posts great things.
All right. So I just want to make sure it was the same Bette Midler I was thinking of. Okay.
The one who Midlered on at the Tonys the other night.
So another analytics story, of course, from me. My next one is from a Neiman's Lab article by Joseph Lichterman. There's a Swedish news startup named Kit that is rethinking content analytics in a fascinating way. So for each story they generate, regardless of the distribution channel, their content producers have to fill out 17 categories of metadata that the company has developed to classify their stories. They collect data points, include data points on 145 different classifications for a total of 43 billion combinations. Covering such things as the tone of a story. Is it funny? Is it dry? The story's intent. Was it created to surprise, inform, etc.? Kit also collects more than 200 different output data points on every story, including time spent on page, scroll depth, reach, engagement, and a lot more, depending on the story's format and the platform where it was posted. So the goal of collecting all this is to create Kit Core, which is a taxonomy for editorial content and a more holistic overview of what makes a story successful. From all that data, they've created this story engine. It's their CMS that powers every aspect of Kit's editorial process, from story ideation through creation, publication, and distribution. Kit is primarily a distributed publisher, so they publish on a bunch of different platforms, but everything they produce, no matter the platform, is created and distributed within the story engine, which allows them to categorize their stories in more nuanced ways and optimize the content for each platform. So here's an example: 2 hypothetical boating accidents in the Mediterranean. One involves 12 Syrian refugees trying to reach Italy, and the other involves 12 British tourists off the coast of Gibraltar. Both stories could be defined as accidents, but they're dramatically different stories, obviously. So the company uses a combination of metadata staffers' input, analytics on how the stories perform to better understand how users consume different types of stories, and how the content performs, content types perform on different platforms. They've been collecting editorial data since they launched, and last year they began offering access to the content insights to brands and advertisers. So it's a really different way of thinking about how stories perform and what makes them perform in which ways. And first time I've heard of anybody doing anything like this. So fascinating story.
Wow, that's really amazing. What does that cost? Do you know?
I don't know what the cost is.
I have a feeling it's a lot.
Their site is in Swedish, so I couldn't read it.
It's a little hard to tell. Well, on a completely different note that has absolutely no transition, there's an adorable Facebook Messenger chatbot, and it uses artificial intelligence to talk to you about your mental health. This is from a Mashable story by Rebecca Ruiz, and we discussed the original psychotherapy bot during episode 183 of the Beyond Social Media Show, which is on our blog, beyondsocialmediashow.com, and in that case, /183. But in any case, this is an adorable little bot, and it kind of asks you, how you're feeling and what's up and what you want to talk about, and gets from your answers something about the state of your mental health. And this is connected to Facebook trying to find a way to prevent suicide from being a big thing on Facebook, and also to try and, I mean, Facebook is trying to be everything to everybody, and trying to find a way to direct people to help when they need it. But it's absolutely an adorable little chatbot, and you want to talk to it because it's so dear.
Well, one emotional state that can drive you crazy is following political news. So Facebook has some updates regarding political activity on Facebook as well. This is from a CNN Money story by Jackie Wattles. So there's been some recent Facebook updates that are aimed at better acquainting people with their representatives and vice versa. Among the updates are new features that include insights that show elected officials what news stories are popular among their constituents. The goal is to help officials understand what issues are important to voters. That assumes, of course, that your representatives are actually interested in what their voters are saying. But that's another story. That's another story. Citizens will also be able to see the stories that are trending within their own districts. The community tab on elected officials' pages will display a scrolling list of trending stories under the headline "Popular in Elected Officials' Name District." Facebook also launched a new constituent badge feature that I talked about in a previous episode. So if a user turns on the feature, a small badge will appear next to your posts that belong to local, state, and federal representatives when you post on their pages. The idea is to make elected officials be able to easily identify their constituents on their Facebook page. It's interesting. It is, I find the trending stories on elected officials' Facebook page is fascinating in and of itself, because people often go to voice their complaints on their elected officials' Facebook pages, and if they are able to see what trending stories are, it probably that their own constituents or the people in their own districts are reading, it probably gives you a better sense in a live way of where your district stands for both citizens of that district as well as representatives representing that district on various issues.
That to me is a huge overreach on the part of Facebook, but we'll see how that plays out. Does that bring us to bad news?
No, it doesn't.
Well, give us your good news, because I'm full of bad news tonight. I got it all over the place.
So the failing New York Times, the infamously failing New York Times, isn't really failing. Big surprise. Digiday's Max Willens has a story about New York Times having announced in an internal memo that it has amassed 13 million email subscribers, more than twice the number it had 3 years ago. In the summer of 2015, the Times was publishing 33 newsletters regularly. Today, it publishes more than 50 editorial emails at least weekly, and they range from local news, California Today, to service, cooking, smarter living, to history, Vietnam 67, which is a look back at the Vietnam War through the prism of a single year. So according to this memo, that growth matters because newsletter subscribers are twice as likely as regular New York Times subscribers to become newspaper subscribers. They also read twice as many stories per month as the average Times reader. So better for advertisers, better for New York Times revenue streams. They source the entire Times newsroom for newsletter topics and ideas. The editor of newsroom newsletters is Elizabeth Goodrich, and she doesn't have a set team. Instead, she spends time connecting with dozens of the audience and bureau teams looking for ideas. Her work has yielded some obvious local projects like the local California Today or New York Times Australia, but it also created some surprises too. The Vietnam 67 email series is a limited run newsletter that's an attempt to recreate the success of Disunion, which is a series that ran in the opinion section several years ago about the Civil War. Vietnam 67 was launched in May, has an open rate of over 80%. And she expects if that model succeeds, which it appears it is doing, it could be a model for the newsroom to copy. So the growth that the Times is seeing is a fruit of an industry-wide embrace of email that began 2 years ago when publishers were eager to take their readers off of platforms like Facebook and Google. And what have I been saying all along, BL? It's the email that matters. If you don't have a customer's email address, you don't own the relationship. The most important marketing asset is the email.
Well, I am a digital subscriber to the Times, but I used to be a print subscriber. And I find that I do read more now that it's digital, but I also get, just so I don't forget to read stuff, I get probably 10 of their newsletters every day. I probably read about 5 of them, but they're all really worth having a look at.
Yep, that and Washington Post, their apps and their online outfits are fantastic. So
and one more letters from them too. Okay, give us the rest of your good news, Dave.
One more good one before we get to bad stuff. Twitter. This is from an Engadget story by Andrew Dalton. Twitter has added new requests inbox for DM that adds a filter while also protecting users from abuse and unwanted messages. So if your DMs are open and someone you don't follow messages you, it will go into requests. From there, you can accept or delete that message. If you accept it, it will go into your inbox. Deleting the message doesn't prevent that user from communicating with you in the future unless you block them or mute them. If you've accepted a message from a user in the past, new messages from that user will also go directly in your inbox. All attached media, such as images and video, will be hidden whenever an unknown sender sends you a direct message, but you can activate them by accepting the conversation and clicking View Media. Finally, there's a new group DMs that will get the same accept delete prompt if you're added by a user you don't know. If you have read receipts turned on for DMs, the sender won't know that you've seen their message until you click accept. It's only rolling out on Twitter's iOS and Android apps, but should start rolling out in the web version in the next few months. Very helpful for journalists who want to develop sources and PR pros alike. So I'm interested in seeing how that works out. I'll be trying it and maybe report back.
I personally don't want direct messages from people I don't follow, but did you notice
it sends it into a different section of your DMs.
I know, but I have enough things I have to look at. Did you notice today that Twitter has been rolling out a new design? The homepage is different, and the little icons are different, and I think it looks quite nice, actually. They've made it look much smoother than it was before. So that brings us to the worst news of the week, does it not? Okay, well, this really is incredible. Everybody knows what happened yesterday at the congressional baseball game practice, and Senator Paul Rand was there, and I've heard him explain what happened and how absolutely horrific it was to be there when the shooter opened fire and shot 5 people. But he spoke on CNN and MSNBC immediately afterwards, and he praised the presence of the Capitol Hill police, and he said they prevented a massacre, which everybody has said, but he forgot a little something. He forgot his June 23rd, 2016 tweet to Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, in which he said, Judge Knapp, why do we have a Second Amendment? It's not to shoot deer, it's to shoot at the government when it becomes tyrannical. I haven't looked since this morning, but it sure as hell was there this morning, and what goes online stays online. It'll be on our blog.
Oops.
Yeah, really, that's a pretty big oops.
Here's another oops. Bill Maher had a big oops 2 weeks ago. Yeah. This is from a PR Daily article by Kevin Allen. So 2 weeks, Bill Maher was forced to apologize for using the N-word on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher. HBO official statement saying it was inexcusable and tasteless. So 2 weeks ago, he began his show with an interview with Republican Senator Ben Sasse, who is promoting his new book, The Vanishing American Adult. And here's the relevant part of that interview. Maher says, Halloween used to be a kid thing. Sasse replied, it's not anymore? Maher, not out here. No, adults dress up for Halloween. They don't do that in Nebraska? Sasse, it's frowned upon. Yeah, we don't do that quite as much. Maher, I gotta get to Nebraska more. Sasse, you're welcome. We'd love to have you work in the fields with us. Maher, work in the fields? Senator, I'm a House N-word. That was it. Maher issued a brief statement through his publicist, admitted he shouldn't have said it, and in the banter of a live moment, the word was offensive, and I regret saying it, and I'm very sorry. The following episode, last week, Maher opened with a discussion of the topic of racism and his use of the N-word with Michael Eric Dyson, who's an author, scholar, and a friend of Maher's, who is also Black. For his panel discussion, he also had among his guests Simone Sanders, an activist who is also a national press secretary for Bernie Sanders, and actor-rapper Ice Cube. Both of the guests discussed Maher's mistake. Ice Cube, who is promoting his 25th anniversary of his album Death Certificate, in particular, took the opportunity to school Maher and his audience of young white people on the use of the N-word. Specifically, he called out white people who have Black friends who may feel they're familiar and feel they have earned a pass to use the word. They don't get a pass. White people don't get a pass. Maher should have known that of all people. Though he acknowledged his mistake, he took responsibility for it. He apologized. He was also very defensive throughout that show. Nevertheless, he did invite people who he knew were going to criticize him, and it's kind of a textbook case on how to deal with the fallout from such a hugely damaging mistake.
It's not going to go away anytime soon either, you know. So speaking of hugely damaging mistakes, the Republican senator from Missouri on Facebook, which is still having some algorithm problems, live on Facebook, he beheaded and eviscerated a chicken. And this is from a story by Max Lonberg in the Fresno Bee. And this is from the You Can't Make This Shit Up department, seriously. And you wonder, like, where is Facebook's anti-violence algorithm now? But in the video that he posted to Facebook, State Representative Mike Moon, an Ash Grove Republican, cuts the head off the chicken while announcing that he wants to stop abortions in Missouri. And he segues from saying that God entrusted humans to protect and care for animals into making a plea for his bill to stop abortion. He said, we've been called back for this special session for the primary purpose of supporting life, protecting the unborn specifically, as he's cutting off the chicken's head and pulling out its innards. He said, I think we need to get to the heart of the matter here today. So today I'm filing a bill that will lead to a stopping of abortion in the state of Missouri, and I hope you will support it. And it's House Bill 14, called the Missouri Right to Life Act, and its proposed effective date is August. And really?
Yeah, well, the inmates are running the aside.
Well, why can that happen live on Facebook? Why? Is there no way to prevent all of this? What happened to the tens of thousands of live people who are watching this stuff all day long and all night long? what happened to them? What are they doing? Were they sleeping on the job? I mean, do we need more of them? What?
You need to not have people do that on Facebook Live. You need
Yeah,
individuals to be
yeah.
sane.
Or kill themselves, or kill other people, or shoot strangers. I mean, there's crazy stuff happening on Facebook. You could say, yes, well, there's crazy stuff happening in the world, but Facebook has the responsibility to filter that stuff.
You know, I'm sure they didn't plan for this to happen. So
Well, they didn't plan for, somebody to shoot a stranger who was walking down the street, or for
right.
somebody to kill themselves. But
it's not Facebook's fault that people are crazy.
Well, but
it's
there has
their
to
fault.
be some filter, David. There does.
Well, clearly, they've got to do something about it. But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's on the people who are doing crazy things to stop doing that. Anyway, here's an oops. I'm a big fan of the publication Quartz, so I read it frequently. And I was reading it the other day and came across an article titled "Farmers on the Nile Are Going Back to School to Combat Climate Change." So of course I want to read that. Interesting. And click on the article and get to the article, and there's an editor's note that says, after this post was published, it emerged that it was substantially the same in content as a post published on December 20, 2016 on National Geographic, and included several cases of identical or very similar phrasing. It should not have been published. We have therefore removed the text and posted text of the post from the site, and we apologize to the National Geographic. Oops. Yeah. But that is the way to deal with when you get caught. You
Just
might want
say we did it and we're sorry and take it away. Yeah.
You might want to check before you publish, but
well, that's happening less and less everywhere. Because there's less and less staff to do that, and that's part of the issue on Facebook. So let me tell you about the worst newsjacking possibly ever. This was from David Berkowitz and the Daily Caller and Gizmodo, from Phil Stuckey and Adam Clark Estes. And the country woke up to this horrible news about the shooting at the congressional baseball practice and the injuring of Majority Whip Steve Scalise and several others. And at the same time, a catastrophic fire had killed 6 people. Then there was a shooting in San Francisco. I mean, it was a horrible day. And Twitter's sponsored trending section had decided to promote a very unfortunate hashtag Happy Death Day. And there was a custom emoji of a bloody knife and a cake. And perhaps unintentional newsjacking, but hideous nonetheless, Happy Death Day was the trending topic on Twitter in Washington shortly after Wednesday's shooting. And it was trending during the London apartment fire that killed and injured scores of people. It was actually part of an advertising campaign by Universal Pictures for its upcoming slasher film, What the World Needs Now, the upcoming slasher film called Happy Death Day. And Washington senior editor Andrew Bojan tweeted, "Hey, Twitter, maybe this isn't the best time for this promotion." And Stacy, who tweets as Lalka Space Dog, said, considering how often something terrible happens, this was destined to fail. Yeah.
Yeah, but bad timing and nobody paying attention to the promotion that they should have probably.
Well, they must have been paying attention to it if it was trending.
No, you can turn it off. You're paying for, if it's paid trend.
Oh, they could have turned it off. Right, they weren't paying. Right, you're right.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of I had a post that I scheduled for on Twitter for an article about socializing with your colleagues as something you should do for your career, right? And the post includes a shot of our team playing softball together. And that was posted. It's pre-scheduled before the day began, and I hadn't thought anything about it. Obviously, posted it before, and somebody called me out and said, "Is this an expert troll or what?" And I'm like, "No, pre-scheduled. Didn't even think about it. Minor thing." I mean, this guy was reading a lot into it because all it was a picture of a softball field with some people playing. The headline didn't have any reference to what was going on, but still, people do notice that.
People do notice these things, And here's a story about something that Mashable noticed that think is quite bizarre. You know, PETA never fails to disappoint. They do things that are beyond reason. This comes from both the Washington Post and Mashable. And PETA wanted to have a cat video go viral, but it didn't work out the way they planned it. So what they had was this small gray cat named Rufus, and he's sitting on a bar stool in a kitchen. And then a man says, "Rufus, jump." And he says it in a stern voice, and Rufus looks at the stool next to his a few feet away, and he cowers. And the owner walks over to the cat and says, "Rufus, jump." And the cat just sits there, and he slaps the cat hard in the head, and the cat doesn't jump. And he slaps the cat again, and finally the cat does the trick. And he says, "One more for the camera." And the cat runs away, he's terrified. And so the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, were intending to anonymously release this video on YouTube to draw attention to animal cruelty. But here's the problem. The video was fake. The cat is CGI. And a PR company working on PETA's behalf asked a media organization to help the video go viral without revealing that the cat wasn't real. Then once there was like a whole blowback from it, the PR firm, Press Kitchen, was asking Mashable to then write about the video and not explain. First, they wanted them to write about it and not explain the origins. And then they wanted to say after that this was the way that circus animals and other trained animals are often treated, and only then reveal that it was a fake. So Mashable said, regardless of the campaign's noble intent, spreading false information to raise awareness for anything, even the abuse of animals, is wrong and irresponsible. The campaign's big reveal relies on the audience following up on the story. And as we all know, the internet and the news cycle move fast, and people who believe this clip may not really see the next one or learn the behind-the-scenes story. But this is not the first time for PETA, that's for sure. And it made me remember a post that was on my blog in 2003. And there was one where they captured compared livestock born into the meat industry with rape victims. And then the one that I had on my blog in 2003 was, "Don't leave Santa milk and cookies, leave him vegan milk, because the hormones in milk will make Santa impotent," which is, of course, what every child needs to know. And their headline was, "Santa can't come this year."
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, with the PR firm doing that, one, why would you accept a gig like that? Because you must actually not even care about your relationship with reporters if you're trying to push that on them.
Oh, come on. Look at all the gigs that people accept because they need the money. Come on.
That's true.
You know, I mean, maybe they had to feed their babies, who knows? But speaking of PR pitches from hell, I got one this week that was addressed to, "Hey, parentheses, insert media contact name." So I wrote back and I said, "Gee, thanks for your pitch." And I signed it, "Hey, insert media contact name."
Yeah. Yeah. I hate the ones that they put RE in the subject line to make you think like they're responding to, you've already talked to them.
Right,
like,
or have you had a
every
chance
time.
to look at whatever, you know, like if I was interested in it, I'd have gotten back to you. But sometimes I haven't had a chance, and sometimes it is something I'm interested in. But it just pisses me off that you assume.
Don't try and trick me.
24,000, right? The 24,000 emails I get every month that I remember yours, you know, like at least give me a hint. So does that bring us to shiny objects, Dave?
It does. It does.
Well, I came across one that was really very clever and interesting. And that I actually might try for fun walkers. It's called 13way.com, and they're ready-made video commercial templates that are like 15 and 30 seconds, and they have, and a lot of them feature a funny dog, which is what I like about them. But my favorite is a chess-playing dog who could be in an ad for a dog trainer. And they'll even white label the ad so it looks like you made them yourself for a couple of extra bucks. And they come with royalty-free music and backgrounds and film clips clips, and they're really quite clever. And you put in your logo and your message and your call to action, and the prices start at $45. So it's really worth a look. It's a very, very clever idea, and for small businesses who are cash strapped, a good way to go.
Interesting. All right. Let's wrap this up. Daily numbers. This is from Chartbeat. Chartbeat, if you don't know, is a content analytics firm. So they measure more in-depth analytics than you would likely get than you often get from Google Analytics. So it's more attention metrics. So they are using, these numbers are based on their users. They have the data is based on 360 of the approximately 60,000 sites that use their analytics tools, and all 360 sites use Google AMP technology. Google AMP technology, AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's mobile-friendly technology, so when you click on it on a mobile device, it instantly loads the page from a set of search results. Chartbeat says visitors to web pages that load with Google AMP are spending 35% more time with that content on average than with standard mobile web pages. The median load time, and load time of a page is extremely important for keeping people's attention and keeping people on your site. The median load time of a Google AMP page is 1.4 seconds compared to 5.3 seconds for standard mobile web pages, and less than 1/1000th of a second for Facebook instant articles, which is what Google AMP is competing with. So what that tells me is instant articles is lightning fast compared to Google AMP.
Yeah, I guess they have a way to go there, don't they? Dave, you have a project to tell us about.
I do. Well, not a project. I was quoted in an article on LinkDex about, well, I talked about Google's personal tab in search results last week. And I was quoted in this article this week. That's why I talked about it last week, because it was on my mind. So we'll leave a link in the show notes to this article, which has a bunch of other marketers' opinions on the Google's personal search tab.
And my side hustle, funwalkers.com, is off to a pretty good start. We've been getting orders, and some press is coming up. So that's kind of exciting. It's my 5th entrepreneurial venture, which makes me, I guess, a serial entrepreneur. I got too many ideas. That's the problem. So that brings us to the end of episode 191 of the Beyond Social Media Show. And like all of our shows, it will be on BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, in this case, /191. And we'd love to know what you think about it, and we would really appreciate if you would leave us a little love. I'm BL Ochman. You'll find me on Twitter I am at What's Next. I blog at what'snextblog.com. I have a YouTube channel that is What's Next Blog. No apostrophes, by the way. And on Funwalkers, funwalkers.com, my new site. And David Erickson is on Twitter as @DErickson. And he blogs at eStrategyBlog.com and creativepr.com/blog, which is his agency blog that you really want to read. It's good every single week. And on YouTube, he's eStrategy. And the show, BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, is our site where you'll find every single one of the 191 episodes that we've done. And we're on YouTube, we're on Google+, we're on Twitter as @BSMedia, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. So we would love you to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That would really be a terrific thing for you to do. So please take a look at the show notes. There are links to all the places you can find us. And we'll be back next week, same time, same station. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.